welcome back. We are finishing up with this video series, 30 ways to get started in real estate investing. Now, as we've talked about, we've gone over numerous ways to get started in real estate investing, from syndications to real estate investment trusts to private lending, tax liens, just to name a few. We've also highlighted a number of commercial options, residential options, obviously people will live there, but commercial, such as distribution centers or warehouses, assisted living, just to name a few, that are more geared towards where the tenant is a business versus the tenant is a couple or family living in a residential space. Now, there's a subset in the commercial space that is called triple net leases, or triple N for short. Now, you may have heard this, maybe not, and you might just be wondering, well, what does triple net mean? Now, let's just take a step back and look at a generic or general lease. Typically in a landlord-tenant situation, the landlord is going to rent out a property, a building, to a tenant. Now, the tenant's obviously going to be responsible for paying the rent. They're going to be responsible for probably some general upkeep, but such things as property insurance, they don't have to worry about that. That's the landlord's responsibility. Property taxes, property insurance. They might have renter's insurance, but they don't need to carry insurance on the entire property. If, say, they're in a, I don't know, strip mall or a condo or a townhome, that's the landlord's responsibility. He needs to get insurance or property insurance on the property since he owns it. And then there's the fun thing about the maintenance. You might have heard the old adage of, well, I don't want to be a landlord to get those, 2 a.m. clogged toilet phone calls, have to worry about the toilets, tenants, termites, trash, oh, Mr. Landlord, this cupboard door is loose, this door hinge is broken, this window needs to be replaced, the furnace filter needs to be replaced, the battery and the smoke detector needs to be replaced. Landlord, I need all these maintenance requests, whatever the case may be. So, obviously I've maybe gone a little on the extreme of some of these. Obviously, I'm a property owner. I own numerous properties throughout the United States, but I outsource everything to property managers. So I'm not getting those phone calls that the toilet is clogged, the whatever sprinkler system is leaking, or whatever there is for a maintenance request. Now, when it comes to triple net leases, this is actually a special arrangement that the the tenant leases the property, and now they're also responsible for paying the rent. But taking a step back, for a single net lease, the tenant is going to be responsible for the rent as well as the property taxes. On a double net lease, the tenant is responsible for paying the property insurance on the building. That's not on the landlord, that's the tenant's responsibility. So a double net lease, the tenants would be responsible for the monthly rent, the property taxes, as well as the property insurance. And the third N, or for a triple net lease, would be the maintenance. Tenant has the building, they're renting the building. I don't know, furnace causes some issues. They're responsible for calling in an HVAC technician to get that fixed. The air conditioner goes out. The tenant is responsible for that. Window gets broken. The tenant is responsible for getting that replaced. Flooring, whatever, the carpet gets stained or something breaks or whatever the case may be. Pretty much anything of the maintenance request, big or small, the tenant is responsible for. As a landlord, your taxes, the insurance, and the maintenance, that's all outsourced. The tenant takes care of it. Now, there's obviously some pros and cons with this, and I'm going to go over a couple of them. But generally speaking, you might just be thinking, well, gosh, with the triple net lease, I get monthly income and the tenant pays me, and I don't have to worry about the property taxes. If there's some assessment to it, the tenant pays for it. I don't have to worry about property insurance. If my property insurance or the property insurance market goes up 10, 15, 20% due to, climate change or mitigating factors, whatever the case may be, I don't have to worry about that. That's all in the tenant. And geez, even from a maintenance perspective, if something as simple as a clogged toilet or a plumbing issue comes up, the tenant calls the plumber. I don't need to worry about that. This is utopia. Why wouldn't everyone do a triple net lease? Well, for starters, not everyone does do a triple net lease. Myself, I personally, there might be, but I'm not aware of anything like this in the residential market. If any of you out there know of something, let me know. I'm always willing to learn. But the triple net market typically goes into the commercial space and many times retail. And when you think of triple nets, think of your Walgreens, think of your Starbucks locations. And I'll just use a Walgreens because I'm sure everyone, depending on where you're listening to this, have either driven by a Walgreens, have seen a Walgreens, been in a Walgreens, shopped at a Walgreens, whatever the case may be. Now, Walgreens, a lot of these big retailers, whether that's a Walgreens or Starbucks or wherever the case may be, they have a very set criteria. So they might have a very specific plan for how the building is designed, how the building is to be built, for the various processes or where their locations for all their products are. Might have a very set parameters for the lighting, for the window placement. So if you notice of a lot of buildings where, whether it's a Walgreens, where they kind of look pretty similar, whether you go to this one or go to the one up in the Twin Cities or wherever the case may be, a lot of times that comes down to the building plans where they come up with one building plan that is allotted to maximize the space, maximize the revenue, and obviously kind of has some efficiency versus, well, we're going to build this Walgreens like this, and we're going to build this Walgreens like this, et cetera, et cetera. So they're going to have very specific parameters in place. Many times this can be a brand new partnership. Say a Walgreens wants to move in and maybe they work with a local real estate development company and they say, hey, we need you to build a building with these parameters. We'll help you pay to build it. We're going to rent this back. We're going to rent it from you. We're going to pay above market rents, and we're going to take care of the taxes, insurance, and maintenance. Likewise, there might be a tenant that wants to sell a property that has a triple net lease in place. Here in just even little old Marshall, Minnesota, up north in Granite Falls, there was actually a triple net lease commercial entity that came up on the market. Long story short, there was a number of reasons I didn't pursue it, but that's an option that if it's on the open market or even off market, where you can buy a property that has a triple net lease in place, that you as the owner, you as the landlord, don't need to worry about the taxes, don't need to worry about the insurance, don't need to worry about the maintenance. And a lot of that income from the rent goes right into your pocket. And typically, again, with these triple net leases, the Walgreens of the world's, instead of a 1, maybe 2 or 3 year lease in place, you could be looking at a 10, maybe a 20-year lease contract, which obviously that's recurring revenue, recurring passive income that goes right into your pocket. There might even be small escalators built in there. Again, the tenant, the Walgreens or whomever, they're going to be paying for the property taxes. They're going to be paying for the insurance. So a lot of the variable costs that typical landlords see go up over time, they're not going to need to worry about. So, obviously there's still some expenses for having the property, excuse me, and it might have some small escalators built into it. But typically you'll have a long-term tenant with a well-known established big player that pays you a triple net lease monthly payment each and every month. Now, like I mentioned, there are a few downsides to this. Now, typically with triple net leases, whether you've been into, a fast food establishment, a Walgreens, Starbucks, you might notice that the building may not be as conducive to other forms of businesses. So let's just say, okay, the Walgreens has been in charge of this building, whatever, they've had a 20-year lease, and that 20-year lease comes to an end, and whatever the case may be, the Walgreens decides, well, this town that we're in, population is declining, our revenues are declining, we want to move this Walgreens or move these resources to another suburb where there's larger growth, more potential, let's just say. Well, then you as the owner, now the nice thing during this entire time, the tenant's been taking care of the maintenance. Now, the downside of this, since you still own the building, and let's say the triple net lease operator decides to move out, or God forbid, goes out of business, or whatever the case may be. Now you not only have a vacant building, you have a vacant building that now, remember those taxes, insurance, other expenses. Well, the tenant's been paying them for the last 10, 15, 20 years. You might not even have a clue what those are. And now all of a sudden, you're getting hit with those bills. And maybe way back when you started that lease, or that lease was first put in place, maybe the property taxes were $3,000 a year, and now maybe they're $10,000 a year. A lot of times through assessments, various bonding bills. If there's a property tax increase to go towards, a new school, a new community project. Typically speaking, right, wrong, or indifferent, commercial properties tend to bear the brunt of a lot of that increase. They tend to hit the homeowners a little bit less. For whatever reason, they just think all businesses seem to have gobs of money and they can absorb the increases. Now, when you got a tenant in there and they're paying the increased property taxes, increased property insurance, you're kind of hands off. But now, if you got a vacant building, okay, now all those bills you have to pay, and maybe they've jumped up substantially. And now you look at it, it's like, well, gee, now I got this empty building here. Well, I can't exactly just have another Walgreens move in. Maybe I can call CVS. Maybe they're interested, maybe they're not. But typically, this property might need a whole overhaul, maybe an entire new layout, maybe a whole new build out. Maybe it needs to be built in this subdivided to small offices, maybe a mixed use property. So the traditional turn is going to be a lot more expensive than just, okay, we're going to do new paint, new carpet, some new amenities, new fridge, new washer dryer for the tenants, like you would see in a residential space. This could be a very high dollar turn to redevelop that, make that suitable for the next Walgreens, the next triple net lease operator. Maybe another company comes in, the next new Walgreens, that says, yeah, we'll rent this for you for 20 years. We'll take care of the maintenance, but we need this. You might be driving by, see signs where it says office space available, build to suit. That is typically a term in the industry where, hey, we're going to rent this out to you. Let us know how you need it built out. Do you need smaller offices? Do you need more windows? Do you need a big industrial freezer put in? Maybe it'll be like a mini grocery. Do you need refrigeration put into place? New HVAC unit on the roof for more power? Endless options. But if you ever see a sign that says office space available or commercial space available, build to suit, that's where the landlord's saying, hey, we'll build this out. We'll put in refrigeration unit, new aisles, subdivide, new offices, whatever the case may be. We will build this to suit your needs as the business that's moving in. So, like I said, one of the downsides to this is if you have a long-term tenant move out, especially if you own one of these in maybe an area of declining population, or maybe a business rents it and declining in revenue and hits on hard times, they go for bankruptcy, they move out. You could be left with a vacant building with a very, very high taxes and insurance costs. So this isn't exactly risk-free. So I just kind of want to highlight the pros and cons of this. Yes, it's nice to have all those expenses offsourced or outsourced to the tenant, but if that tenant moves out or goes into bankruptcy, wherever the case may be, you could easily be spending six figures to build to suit this for the next developer, the next tenant that goes into place. And during that turn time, maybe it sits vacant for 6 months, a year. I've seen commercial properties sit vacant for 6 years or more. And during that time, now you as the owner are responsible for the property taxes, minimal, but they're still there. The utilities, you're responsible for the property insurance. So, if you have this vacant property that isn't bringing you any income, you had a gravy train for 20 years and like, oh man, I'm getting this, thousands and thousands of dollars a month, and I don't have to pay for property taxes, insurance. I'm just going to spend all this money. I don't need to worry about a thing. Well, that could come to a sudden screeching halt. they decide to move out, they decide to end their lease early, they go bankrupt, and now you got to spend a couple $100,000 to build the suit for the next tenant that goes in there. And like we see, generally speaking, in the commercial industry space, there's a lot of vacant office buildings out there, a lot of vacant office space. So typically, supply demand comes into play. There might be less of a demand and a higher supply. So maybe you're getting 10,000 a month for a triple net lease, but tenant moves out. Maybe the going market right now is $8,000 a month. And during that time, you got the property insurance, the taxes, the maintenance to take care of. So, this isn't just like a utopia, passive income, no expenses, no downside, no risk. Just to let you know, there is some risk involved. Now, finally, in closing, when it comes to triple net leases, I myself did not know of this until about a year ago when I was at the Summit on Sand with the real estate guys in Belize, and not a lot of people know about this. And surprisingly, I had some real life experience with this in the last couple of months with one of my side hustles. But you're probably familiar with the United States Postal Service, USPS, or post office. Every community, town, municipality, whether it's the size of Taunton, Minnesota, or Minneapolis, Minnesota, typically will have a post office, no matter how small. And it might even just be this very tiny brick building on Main Street with very limited office hours for the respective post office. But a lot of people don't know this. The USPS, or the US Postal Service, owns very few. I actually don't think they own any of the facilities. They just rent these out. These, again, are on long-term leases. Pretty stable tenant, obviously, right, wrong, or indifferent. While they made some funding changes and some fiscal changes over the last couple of years, I don't think the Postal Service is going away anytime soon, and it might just change, or maybe have some limited delivery options for some of the smaller towns. But if you have a postal service and every town needs a post office, look up the building address, then go on to the recorder's website, the local recorders, and I will bet you money that the owner of that building is probably going to be some random LLC, or maybe in someone's personal name, and the United States Postal Service rents that building from them. Like I said, my firsthand experience was kind of ironic at how this played out, but Summit on Sand, this was in Belize in June of 2021, and networked with one guy. For the life of me, I can't remember his name right now, but he actually owned a number of buildings that the post office rented from him, and he kind of shared his story with it. And it's like, wow, that's kind of interesting. I never thought of that. And sure enough, probably about a month or two after I got back from that trip, in little old Curry, Minnesota, there was the commercial space available. It was the post office building in Curry, Minnesota, that for whatever reason, the owner just needed some cash and they wanted to sell it. And that owner had a net lease in place with the US Postal Service. One of my little side hustles through We Go Look, that I do contract jobs, usually taking pictures for prospective buyers that are maybe out of town or out of state. That's like, well, gee, I'd like to see the condition of this building, but I don't have the time, money, or energy to drive, a couple hundred miles or even fly across the country to go check this out. I'm just going to pay someone to go drive there and do a quick little write up, take some pictures. That's one of my little side hustles that I've done for a while. The little tiny towns of Milroy and Iona, I ended up taking pictures of the post office there. Now, We Go Look is a third party middleman, if you will. So I don't know who the end person was that was looking at it. It could have just been for maybe an insurance claim. They might have been doing a cash out refinance, so they need pictures for the bank, or someone was interested in buying it. I honestly don't know the story of it, but just from my involvement, I was contracted to take some pictures for the current owner or prospective owner, whatever the case may have been, to see what the condition is of those properties. So it's just kind of interesting. Within a 12-month span, I learned, oh, the United States Postal Service doesn't own any of their buildings. They rent those from property owners. And those property owners might need to sell those properties from time to time, and maybe it changes ownership but still has the lease in place. So just a little tidbit, not necessarily, maybe none of my listeners are looking and saying, oh, I'm going to dive into buy every post office building that's in the 30-mile radius of where I live for some triple net lease income. Not saying that, but just another avenue that you probably may not have known about before watching this video. So in conclusion, this brings the way number 29, or triple net leases, to a close. Stay tuned for tomorrow's final video of way number 30 of how to get started in real estate investing. Take care.